Imagining a visit to a Stone Age camp 30,000 years ago reveals a bizarre reality. It wouldn't feel threatening, just deeply unsettling. Looking around, a strange question would arise. Where are the elders? Ultimately, practically the entire community would consist of young kids. Little ones dashed playfully around the hearth while others watched from beside working elders. Adolescents actively trained in the essential duties of survival, and youthful parents cradled their infants. This entire settlement would have possessed an incredibly vibrant, youthful energy, vibrancy unmatched by any modern municipality we know today. It carries a certain logic. You've likely encountered this exact figure before. Our ancestors rarely survived past their mid-20s or early 30s. No matter which specific age is cited, the underlying implication persists. Life back then was incredibly brief and unforgiving. It might seem like our ancestors barely reached maturity before their time was up. Yet this fascinating statistic is deeply deceptive despite being technically accurate. To grasp the truth, we must examine what their day-to-day reality actually looked like. Picture yourself living in the prehistoric world. As dawn breaks, you open your eyes to the fading embers of last night's fire. The camp is slowly waking up. Instantly, your mind focuses on one ultimate goal: staying alive. There are meals to hunt or gather, fresh water to fetch, and young ones to shield from danger. Keeping a close eye on the weather is critical. The coming span of days is just as vital as this very moment because there is no safety net of stored rations. Your survival hinges entirely on what your team can scavenge, hunt, and haul back. And each step of that journey carries immense danger. Consider a minor injury, like a small nick. Today, skinning your knuckle while prepping dinner is just a nuisance. You rinse it off, apply a bandage, and forget about it within days. Yet millennia ago, that tiny scrape could trigger a deadly countdown as the wound festered and pathogens spread. A sudden fever strikes. No one understands its cause, and the battle inside your body remains a total mystery. Those caring for you can offer blankets, provide fluids, and pray for your recovery. That is the extent of their power. Today, we take life-saving antibiotics completely for granted. Throughout the vast majority of our past, these lifesavers were entirely absent, meaning common pathogens routinely wiped out massive populations. Food security was equally fragile. Picture a single unsuccessful hunt. It's frustrating. If the subsequent outing also yields nothing, anxiety sets in. By the third consecutive failure, sheer desperation begins to grip the community. Youngsters must be fed, and adults require sustenance, with no certainty of when they will next feast. But every hunt, even a victorious one, was fraught with peril. The beasts our ancestors pursued did not yield easily. A cornered deer can strike with lethal hooves, a wild boar can impale, and any massive target could easily maim or kill its trackers. Numerous ancestral remains bear the scars of shattered limbs, mended fractures, and trauma. In such a perilous era, simply reaching a mature age was a monumental feat. Yet the threats to survival weren't limited to internal illnesses. Danger crept from the shadows, the dense brush, and the darkness just past the campfire's warmth. Throughout the vast majority of our existence, mankind was not the ultimate predator. The very creatures who would one day construct skyscrapers, eradicate diseases, and voyage to the stars spent eons fleeing for their lives as prey. Throughout history, apex predators like wolves, crocodiles, lions, hyenas, and leopards targeted humans as prey. Scientists suggest our deep-seated dread of things like spiders, snakes, or the dark isn't accidental. Instead, it is an evolutionary imprint passed down by countless ancestors who survived these lethal threats. Our modern instinctual fears might just be residual memories of the lethal hazards our forebears confronted in the dark. Beside those daily perils was another absolute risk: giving birth. While we celebrate new life now, for vast stretches of our past, delivering a child was one of the deadliest trials a person could face. Complications during labor could easily end the life of the infant, the mother, or even both. As our brains expanded over evolutionary history, giving birth became one of humanity's most perilous thresholds. Our very existence today belongs to the ancestral lines that successfully navigated this danger. At this stage, those figures begin to seem quite credible. Given the constant threats to survival, a life expectancy under 30 feels entirely plausible. It suggests that few people ever reached middle age, and the elderly were a true rarity. It's tempting to think prehistoric settlements were populated only by youth and kids. However, history reveals an unexpected truth. Early humans didn't automatically perish at 30. In reality, once you made it past childhood, living to 50 or 60 was actually quite commonplace. Picture a community of 10 kids. If 5 pass away before age 2, and the remaining 5 reach 60, the average life expectancy is 31. Yet not a single person actually died at 31. Half perished in infancy, while the rest grew old. The statistic is technically accurate, yet highly misleading, but it isn't the reality we usually picture. This is the statistical illusion buried within historical longevity data. When scholars calculate average lifespans, they factor in every single person, including infants. Across the vast majority of our past, surviving youth was a massive hurdle. That crucial detail is what most observers overlook. In antiquity, low average lifespans didn't mean mature adults routinely died at 30. The actual cause was a staggering rate of childhood mortality. In contrast, modern times see over 99% of youngsters in numerous nations survive their critical early years. Throughout the vast majority of our past, such an outcome would seem like pure fantasy. Researchers examining historical communities frequently uncover youth mortality statistics that would deeply disturb us today. In many groups, 1/3 of all kids never reached maturity, while in others, that figure approached 50%. Imagine a typical classroom filled with 30 pupils. Now, picture half of those desks empty. Those 15 children didn't relocate or transfer, they lost their lives. For the vast majority of our history, this was the brutal reality of youth, a devastating loss almost every family had to face. Families understood, and so did their neighbors. Yet daily life persisted. Joy was still found, romance still blossomed, and dreams still took shape. Humanity is incredibly resilient, even in unstable times. Imagine now that you beat the odds of youth. You made it. Then, a transformation occurred. As defenses grew stronger, early humans adapted. They figured out which hazards to avoid and where to gather nourishment. The battle for survival became easier to win, enabling our ancestors to reach advanced ages that often shock us today. Researchers have unearthed ancient remains of individuals surviving well into their 50s, 60s, and even later. Far from being mere legends, these elders were active participants in prehistoric societies. The elderly were very much present, and their survival may have been a key secret to our species' success. Picture a devastating dry spell. While a youth has never lived through such a crisis, an elder recalls the previous disaster. This elder understands where hidden springs persist, which pathways led to dead ends, and which flora turned toxic once the downpours finally returned. They held knowledge absent from any page, because the written word did not yet exist. Without books, charts, or documents, the collective wisdom of humankind resided solely within the mind. Consequently, a community elder was far more than just an aged individual. They were the tribe's only living archive. If a single elder passed away, an entire library of information vanished. This completely shifts our perspective on aging. Far from being a drain on early communities, the elderly were actually their greatest asset. In fact, researchers suggest this vital role is why the human species developed such remarkably long lives. Elders played a vital role in bringing up the youth, passing down crucial wisdom across generations. Their presence significantly boosted the survival rates of the young. Far from being a burden, old age held immense worth, a detail frequently forgotten when we reconstruct prehistory. Our common assumptions about ancient life are mistaken. It's common to picture a past where nobody lived long, and hitting 30 was a miracle. We assume older generations simply didn't exist back then. However, the truth is far more diverse. Past civilizations actually featured a full spectrum of ages, from youth to senior citizens, much like today. The real gap lay in how many individuals were stripped of the chance to grow old. The supreme sorrow wasn't passing away at age 30, it was failing to survive long enough to ever reach it. This high infant mortality rate is what skewed the average lifespan, not a biological expiration date capping human survival at 30. Returning to that initial settlement, a stroll through it would reveal an overwhelming number of children, giving the entire community a remarkably youthful feel. Yet, spend enough time there, and another detail emerges: the elders. These are the souls carrying a lifetime of history, those who have weathered countless harsh seasons. They still recall the ancient hunts, periods of drought, the cycle of life and death, great journeys, and legends stretching back to the dawn of their people. Their presence there exposes the reality behind a widely misconstrued historical statistic. Our ancestors didn't typically perish because their bodies failed them at age 30. Rather, the true hurdle of the ancient world was simply surviving long enough to reach adulthood. Curiously, this reshapes our definition of advancement. We usually associate human progress with giant skyscrapers, modern aviation, digital technology, and space exploration. While those milestones are indeed remarkable, our species' most profound triumph is far more elemental: ensuring our children survive. Modern sanitation, immunizations, medical facilities, safer delivery methods, antibiotics, and waste management didn't invent longevity. People have always been capable of growing old. Rather, these innovations tremendously boosted the odds that an infant would survive long enough to reach those later years. Throughout most of our past, the ultimate struggle wasn't reaching a ripe old age. The real test was simply lasting long enough to reproduce, and everyone on Earth today is here because their ancestors succeeded against those brutal odds.